So today we are talking about estrogen, the good, the bad, and the lifestyle changes to make an impact. I find, first of all, my name is Lynne Romancia, and I'm one of the dietitians here at the St. Jude Wellness Center, if I have not met you before. And I would say hormone imbalance is in the top three or four conditions that I get asked about when people come to visit me. So I thought it would be a great idea to talk a little bit about estrogen, which is one of the key hormones that affects women in particular. And so we are going to dive right in. So the agenda is we're first going to talk about the good, which is the functions of estrogen. And we'll also talk a little bit about production of estrogen. We'll talk just a tiny bit about metabolism. And then we're going to go into the bad when estrogen is too high or when estrogen is too low. And then finish up with what can we do about it if it's too high or too low? How do we balance it? And then lastly, for people who are having symptoms of either high or low hormones or estrogen, and they want to know how to test if they've never tested before, we'll talk about how you can do that. Sorry about that. Okay, so first, we are talking about the estrogen function. So estrogen is known as the proliferative hormone, and meaning that cells divide, and because of that, during the lifestyle or lifetime, I should say, it's important in bone health. It's important for our hair and our skin. It's important throughout premenopausal ladies, that for vaginal lubrication and thickening of the wall of the uterine, for healthy weight management, and for cardiovascular health and sleep and mood and just a whole host of things that estrogen is involved in. So there's three types of estrogens. There's actually four, but three types in women. And the type 1 or E1 is called estrone. That is the estrogen that is predominant in postmenopausal women. Estrogen 2 or E2, which is also called estradiol, is the strongest of the estrogens. It's the one we have to be the most concerned about, and that's also the one that is most predominant in premenopausal women. And then E3 or estriol is the hormone that is most prevalent during pregnancy, and it is also the weakest of the hormones. So next, a little bit about estrogen production, how and where it's produced. So estrogen is produced from cholesterol, and it goes, if you see on the side there, it starts as cholesterol. It's then converted to progesterone and then to testosterone and other androgens before it becomes estrogen. And estrogen is produced in various areas of the body. Premenopausal, it's predominantly in our ovaries. And among many other things, it's involved in regulating ovulation. It's also produced in our adrenal glands and plays a key role in the development of sex characteristics that make someone male or female, and also metabolism. And then peripheral tissues, such as our fat tissues and our skin. And in postmenopause, our estrogen is primarily made in the fat tissue. So next, we have estrogen elimination. So how is the body eliminating estrogen? And this is where we kind of have this good or bad. And you will see estrone. There are 3 arrows that go down from estrone. One goes to a 2-OH or a 2-hydroxy. One goes to a 4-OH, and one goes to a 16-OH. This is occurring in phase 1 of liver detoxification. And so what we're looking for and what we want for the healthiest estrogen elimination is we want the estrone to go to the 2-OH pathway, the one that you see on the left. You see a green smiley face there. We really want at least 60 to 80% of our estrogen to be converted down the 2-OH pathway. That is the pathway that gives us the least amount of problems. And the 4-OH is definitely a less welcome, if you will, pathway, because it can lead to DNA damage and can cause cancer. So if it goes to the 4-OH pathway and it goes to quinones, that's really where it's very problematic. And there are some things that still can be done at that point to kind of help your body if you are converting to too much 4-OH. And the same with 16-OH. We not as much evidence as used to be that is cancer producing, although it may be, but it also can lead to issues with cardiovascular disease and diabetes. So what we want to do is we want to make sure as much as possible goes down that 2-OH pathway. So let's talk about what happens when our estrogen is out of balance. So first, estrogen dominance. Estrogen dominance is when estrogen levels are either, they're not necessarily high, but they are high in relationship to progesterone. So you could either have high estrogen and just your progesterone is normal, or you could have normal estrogen, but your progesterone is low. So either way leads to estrogen dominance. So signs and symptoms that you could have estrogen dominance: insomnia, painful or heavy periods, breast tenderness, acne, weight gain, fatigue and mood issues, brain fog, anxiety, depression. There's a whole host of signs and symptoms, and it can lead to things like endometriosis. Potential causes, obesity, because postmenopausal, the largest amount of our estrogen is in our belly fat. Having a lot of belly fat can be especially problematic. High androgens can also be a cause of estrogen dominance. Poor diet, stress, smoking, heavy alcohol consumption, and then also estrogen replacement therapy, either without or with inadequate progesterone. And then another possible cause is low melatonin. And then the potential risks, breast cancer, ovarian, endometrial cancer, as I mentioned, endometriosis, PCOS, blood clots and stroke, thyroid dysfunction, gallbladder disease, and dysbiosis. So then we have the other potential causes of estrogen dominance. These are the things that are in our environment and can be known as endocrine disrupting chemicals. So having non-organic meat and dairy products, using plastic food containers that have BPA, using receipts, which we're getting better with receipts these days, but a lot less BPA than we used to have, but there's still BPS, and we're still not quite there yet. And then soaps and cosmetics, there's all sorts of chemicals that are in our soaps and our cosmetics and other home products. And food cans, we're getting better as well, but still you can sometimes see issues from that. So what can we do to sort of help our metabolism in the midst of all these potential issues? There's a whole bunch of things that we can do. And so we can follow a specific diet. We can make sure that we have adequate vitamins and minerals. We can make sure that we are eating specific phytonutrients that have been shown to help. We can correct our any insulin resistance that we may have. And then we can also make sure that we're maintaining a healthy intestine. So we're going to kind of go through each of these individually. So the first is, what foods do we eat? Well, cruciferous vegetables are the biggie here. Making sure that you have broccoli, cabbage, cauliflower, kale, Brussels sprouts, bok choy, arugula, turnips. Those are cruciferous vegetables. And trying to get something from that list every day is a great start to improving our estrogen metabolism. The second one, and one of my favorites right now, is broccoli sprouts. And I've added over there, so broccoli sprouts are a component of sulforaphane, and there are benefits that go beyond metabolism. It's an antioxidant, anti-inflammatory, neuroprotective, antimicrobial, obviously, as we've been talking about, cancer protective, and then also helps with blood sugar support and autism. So lots of good things about broccoli sprouts. I personally take them every single day, and I recommend them to you all as well. And then the next group is this, oh my goodness, if I can say this correctly, Apiaceae. Apiaceae is how we pronounce that. Carrot family vegetables. And I've listed those because you might have never heard of the name, but you've probably heard of most of the foods that are in that plant family. Carrots, obviously, and then celery, parsnips, parsley, fennel, cilantro, dill, anise, caraway, coriander, and cumin. Many of those are seasonings, and so those are great to add to your cooking. And I also have carrots and celery, raw carrots and celery, as a snack every day. And then berries, rosemary, green tea in particular. I'm a fan of matcha tea. Matcha tea is what I call green tea on steroids. And then whole soy, such as edamame and tofu and soy milk, and try to get a non-GMO product, so organic if possible. Omega-3 fatty acids, from either fish or flax, chia and hemp, and walnuts and avocado. Those are all good sources of omega-3 fatty acids. And fiber, of course, which you're going to get from a lot of these fruits and vegetables. And then hydration, making sure that every day that you're having a bowel movement. When you are sluggish and not having adequate bowel movements, things are going slow. It makes it more difficult for our liver to detox. So the next category is phytonutrients. So phytonutrients are substances that are found in certain plants which are believed to be beneficial to human health and to help prevent diseases. So there's a whole host of phytonutrients that can be beneficial in healthy estrogen metabolism. The first is curcumin, which is also known as turmeric. And you can get that in the spice section, and it's often in Indian recipes. We've got a great turmeric roasted cauliflower recipe that we've posted on the St. Jude Wellness website. And then resveratrol. Resveratrol is in grapes. It's also in red wine and berries. And then lipoic acid is actually a sugar, but a healthy sugar, doesn't raise your blood sugars. And it's found in broccoli, tomatoes, spinach, and Brussels sprouts. And in acetylcysteine, which is derived from an amino acid called cysteine. And good sources of N-acetylcysteine are poultry, yogurt, cheese, eggs, sunflower seeds, and legumes. And then vitamin C and E. Those are vitamins, but they are also known to be phytonutrients because they have been found to really help in prevention of disease and to promote human health. So obviously your citrus for vitamin C, as well as tomatoes and broccoli and bell pepper and leafy greens, and vitamin E in your nuts and seeds. Also spinach and avocado, turnip greens and kiwi. And then D-limonene. Limonene is another phytonutrient that's found in citrus. So then next is making sure that you have adequate vitamins and minerals. And so B vitamins are super important for your phase 2 of liver detoxification of estrogen. And so B vitamins can be found in fish and eggs. One of my favorites is nutritional yeast. One of the things I love about nutritional yeast is 1 tablespoon of nutritional yeast has 5 grams of protein and 2 grams of fiber. And you can put nutritional yeast on really anything savory. If you've never tried it before, to me, it reminds me of that old shelf-stable Parmesan cheese that my mom used to buy. And so it tastes like it, but it's not cheese at all. It's made from, there's a lot of B vitamins in it. And so you can sprinkle it on vegetables. You can put it in soups, sprinkle on salads. I sometimes will use it as a coating for, like if I'm making a turkey burger, instead of using breadcrumbs, I'll use that to coat the turkey burgers. And then oats, beans, and lentils and leafy greens are all good sources of B vitamins. And then beta carotene, which is vitamin A. Beta carotene, as you can see, it comes in a lot of fruits and vegetables that are sort of the oranges and yellows, like pumpkin and carrots and sweet potatoes, red pepper and mango, and then also spinach. So here at the Wellness Group, we are we love our pumpkins, and so we will be doing a cooking class coming up that will be all about cooking with cucurbitas, which is squash, different types of pumpkins and squash. And then magnesium is also very important in phase 2 of liver detoxification of estrogen. And you find probably the biggest source of magnesium in pumpkin seeds, but also chia seeds and salmon, almonds and cashews, tofu and spinach. And then last, selenium. So selenium, you can get Brazil nuts, which you see a picture of there. One Brazil nut has the 100% of the recommended daily allotment for selenium. So you don't need a lot of them, just one. In fact, it's possible to get too many. So, be aware of that. But I pick up my Brazil nuts from the bulk section at Sprouts, so I can just buy a few at a time. And I put them in smoothies, or I'll just eat them just straight as is. Also, tuna, sardines, and shiitake mushrooms are also good sources of selenium. So then the next thing in helping to promote healthy estrogen metabolism is correcting insulin resistance if that is a problem. And so how do we do that? So, well, first of all, if you see there the little circle, that is kind of showing the cycle of insulin resistance. So when we have insulin resistance, we eat food, our pancreas secretes insulin in response to the food, but the cells are resisting the insulin, so our blood sugars go up, and then the sugars are then stored in our fat tissues, and then we feel tired and hungry, and we go when we want to eat again. And so it's sort of a vicious cycle. So the way to correct insulin resistance, healthy carbohydrates, making sure our carbohydrates are in the form of fresh fruits and vegetables, mostly non-starchy vegetables and whole grains, and also protein-rich foods like fish and soy and lean meats. And then healthy fats, which I don't have listed here, but healthy fats as well, like olive oil and avocado and nuts. And then here's a bunch of blood sugar balancing substances that have been found to be really helpful with balancing insulin resistant and blood sugars. A lot of times people will supplement with these types of things, but as a dietitian, my first preference is always to try to get them from food. So inositol is in beans and lentils and cantaloupe, grapefruit, nuts and seeds, and brown rice. And chromium is in brewer's yeast, broccoli, and green beans. Cinnamon, Ceylon cinnamon is known as the true cinnamon. And I recommend Ceylon as opposed to the regular cinnamon that you usually will find in the spice shelves, because there's something called coumarin in regular cinnamon, and you can get too much of that. And so if you're trying to take cinnamon for the purposes of correcting insulin resistance, you really need to have somewhere at least 3/4 of a teaspoon per day. And so having Ceylon cinnamon just puts you at less risk for having any issues that you would have with regular cinnamon. And then alpha lipoic acid is another thing that can, and we talked about that one before, but that also helps with insulin resistance, and that's found in broccoli, tomatoes, spinach, and Brussels sprouts. And then the last one is berberine. Berberine is not found in foods. Berberine is in like bark and stems. And so that is one that would need to be taken in a supplemental form. And then other things to do for insulin resistance include exercising, making sure that you have regular daily exercise, including cardio and strength training, and then weight loss if indicated, as well as making sure that you're getting adequate sleep, at least 7 to 8 hours of sleep per day, and then managing stress. So next, for promoting healthy metabolism is maintaining a healthy intestine. And so how do we do that? Well, we've got all sorts of different types of things that we can do to maintain a healthy intestine. First is eating probiotic sources. And you see there, probiotics come in the form of yogurt and kefir, kimchi, fermented veggies, and miso. It's not on there, but kombucha is another good source of probiotics. And you should aim for at least one, if not two servings per day. And also, just know, especially as we age, that our guts really lose the diversity of healthy bacteria. And so having just the same type of probiotic every day is not going to be as beneficial as making sure that you have several different kinds. So a lot of people will come and say, well, I eat yogurt. Well, yogurt tends to be high in lactobacillus. It tends to be high in bifidobacterium, but it's not necessarily high in something like Aspergillosis that you can get in kombucha, for example. And then in miso, aspergillus. So there's different healthy bacteria in different probiotics. Just like if you go to and look at supplements, you're going to find many different probiotic supplements have many different strains of bacteria. Second one is eating foods that are sources of calcium D-glucarate. So calcium D-glucarate, this is not a calcium source, but calcium D-glucarate actually helps us to, it competes with something called beta glucuronidase, or what it actually does is beta glucuronidase is in our guts, and it will cause estrogen to be recycled in the body instead of being eliminated, which can lead us to estrogen dominance. So calcium D-glucarate will bind that estrogen, and it will help us to eliminate it rather than being recirculated. So calcium D-glucarate sources are apples, oranges, broccoli, spinach, carrots, cruciferous vegetables, garlics, and onions. So a lot of the same foods we're finding over and over again. So next, eating natural prebiotic sources, and if healthy, again, aiming for 2 to 3 servings a day. Prebiotic foods are the foods that feed the probiotics or the beneficial bacteria, and includes things like garlic and onions and asparagus, bananas, legumes, and seeds and oats. And then again, stay hydrated in order to absorb your nutrients, in order for those nutrients to be transported from the GI tract into the blood, and to make sure that you're having adequate motility and you're having those bowel movements. So for men, 13 cups a day is recommended by the Institute of Medicine, and for women, 9 cups a day, and that's from all sources. So that can be including your teas and your other beverages. It doesn't have to all be water. And then last, including healthy fats like olive oil daily. A lot of people don't realize it, but yes, our gut likes fiber, but our gut also likes fats, healthy fats in particular. So then next, also bad, is if your estrogen is too low. And this tends to happen post-menopause, after our ovaries sort of shut down and we start uh, in the throes of menopause. And the typical symptoms that we ladies experience are hot flashes and night sweats, insomnia, joint pain, skin issues, low sex drive, mood issues, brain fog, vaginal dryness, weight gain, decreased bone mineral density, and increased cardiovascular risk. So lots of signs and symptoms of low estrogen, and the possible causes. It could be that we don't have enough androgen production. If you go back to that diagram that I showed you, excuse me, that I showed you, that our estrogen comes from the androgens. And so if our androgens are low, then that can also mean that our estrogen will be low. Also, extremely low body fat percentage, extremely low cholesterol, and poor mitochondrial function. So that's at the cellular level, or we don't have enough DIM or I3C. And DIM and I3C come from, guess what? Cruciferous vegetables. So potential risks of estrogen being too low: osteoporosis, heart disease, urinary tract infections, mood disorders, obesity, and infertility. So what do we do then if we've got low estrogen? Well, there's estrogen boosting foods that we can eat. And so here's a list. Foods that increase estrogen contain large amounts of phytoestrogens. So soy is one, and there's been a lot of discussion about soy, and for years people said that soy was bad, and it could cause cancer, and especially breast cancer. And the current studies out there really show that soy is actually beneficial. But what we want to know about soy is that we're looking for soy in the whole form. So tofu and soybeans and edamame and soy milk, those are all good choices for soy, as opposed to the say like the soy burgers or some of those highly processed soy products. I don't recommend those types of products. And again, we want our soy, when possible, to be organic. We want it to be non-GMO. And typically, as far as what's produced in the US, soy, the vast majority of soy, like 90% of soy, is GMO in the US. So getting organic is one way of making sure that it's not. And then there are some people who produce soy without genetically modifying, but it's a small percentage. So also nuts and seeds. Flax is great. When people come to see me and they have hot flashes and they have night sweats, flax is always the first thing that I recommend for them. And then cashews and walnuts, really all nuts and seeds are good. And these days, there's a lot of women in the premenopausal, that are trying to get pregnant, that are using various nuts and seeds at certain times in their cycle to promote fertility. So grains, whole grains in particular, like barley and millet and oats. And then vegetables, again, the cruciferous vegetables, broccoli, cabbage, and kale as an example. Fruits like apricots, strawberries, and kiwi. And then the other things we want to think about with estrogen, when our estrogen is low, is, as we talked about, some of the concerns being osteoporosis, losing bone mineral density. And so we want to make sure that we're including foods that are good for bone health. So are, foods that are rich in calcium, like yogurt, and vitamin D, getting enough sun, magnesium. Again, we've got the nuts and seeds, dark chocolate. So making sure that we are eating a diet that is putting us in the best place for our bones. And then also brain health. We also want to make sure that we're eating foods that improve our brain health. So omega-3 fatty acids are super important for brain health. And then there are some supplements as well. But again, being the dietitian here, I'm really focusing on the foods today. So putting it all together, so that was a lot, a lot of different, you're like, wow, that's a lot of different foods I have to eat, right? So how do I go about doing that? And what does this actually mean? So first of all, some of the things that cause imbalance, we want to get ourselves to be balanced. So if we are overweight, we want to work towards a healthy weight. Sorry, I see there's a typo there. That's supposed to be healthy weight. And if we are eating a high sugar, high glycemic foods, and we have elevated insulin resistance, then we want to balance that. Instead, we want to have a low sugar, low glycemic foods, and blood sugar control. And then high processed, low fiber, and inflammatory foods. Instead, we want to eat high fiber, whole, anti-inflammatory foods. Instead of high omega-6 fats, we want to focus more on high omega-3 fats. We want to correct any nutrient deficiencies that we have and make sure that we're meeting the nutrient needs of our bodies. And then in addition to that, avoiding smoking, avoiding excess alcohol. Women, the recommendation of the dietary guidelines for women is no more than one alcoholic beverage per day if you drink. And then also unnecessary antibiotic use. In past years, antibiotics used to be given out like candy. And we've really come to realize all of the potential negative effects of that. And oftentimes they would be prescribed just because somebody came into a doctor's office and the doctor felt like they wouldn't feel like they got their money's worth unless they came, left with something. So even if there wasn't a diagnosis, there might be antibiotics prescribed. So I think that's really decreasing a lot these days, but it just behooves all of us to, if we're ever, given antibiotics, to really ask ourselves, is this the only option? And ask our doctors, is this the only option? Because we do have a lot of antibacterial herbs, and there's a lot of ways that we can treat things, and also just to make sure that we actually need to treat something. And then the next thing is decreasing the external sources of estrogen and those endocrine disrupting chemicals. So this is a matter of, starting to look at the things that are in our environment that we talked about, and what might we be able to start to change here. It's a pretty daunting task, and I know sometimes people just go, there's just no way. and there is no way that we will ever get all of it, away from all of it, but there's definitely a lot that we can do. So filtering your water, in terms of, any types of products that I'm putting on my skin, the first things to think about is those things that are absorbed into your body. So things like lotion that are going to go right into your skin. Those are things that I would target first. And we're looking for avoiding things like phthalates and parabens. And the best thing that I have found is there's a website that I use, that's called EWG.org, or environmentalworkinggroup.org. These folks spend a lot of time evaluating products. They have just a huge database. And so what I have started doing is that, not that I'm going to go through my house and get rid of every single chemical that's out there, but when I'm out of something and I'm going to go to buy something again, to replace it, I will go into EWG.org and I'll look and see how it's rated. So most things are rated on a scale of, they either have their stamp, which means this is the ones they highly suggest, or it goes up from 1 to 10. So 10 being worst, 1 being best, but the stamp being the absolute best. And so I will just look and see what are the ones that I'm using and what is it, and can I find something that I can buy that lowers that risk. And there's a whole bunch of information in there if you want to look closely. It will even tell you all the ingredients and which ingredients are the problem. You can really get as much information as you want. And then, in the kitchen, changing plasticware and plastic containers, getting rid of the Tupperware containers and replacing them with glass containers. Definitely not cooking plastic containers in a microwave, and then maybe looking at your pans, your cookware. We want to get away from the non-stick cookware and use things like ceramic or cast iron or stainless steel. So those are just some examples for endocrine disrupting chemicals and how we can get rid of it. Obviously, avoiding smoke, and even if we can avoid external sources of smoke as well. So, how do we go from inflammatory to anti-inflammatory? Lowering our sugar. If we're going to have sweeteners, I recommend 100% pure maple syrup or raw honey. Those are sweeteners that we still need to pay attention to them, but they have some antibacterial, antimicrobial. They've got some good properties to them, avoiding fried foods and refined flours and those seed oils we talked about. Artificial sweeteners like sucralose and saccharin, processed meats, junk food, dairy. I'm just passing over that one because I think that there's some good and there's some bad that we're learning about dairy. It does have some inflammatory properties. So if you choose to go the non-dairy route for, say, milk substitutes, the main thing to just be aware of is that they don't all have the same nutrient value. So going with something like a soy milk, you're going to get the most close nutrition as you would get from regular cow's milk. And then the artificial food additives, when you see foods that have tons of things and chemicals in them that you don't recognize. Those are the foods we call ultra processed, and those are the ones we want to try to avoid. And then instead, as you can see, fatty fish like salmon, berries, mushrooms are fabulous, and olive oil, broccoli, leafy greens, that turmeric, and lots of good spices. That's really what we want the balance of our diet to look like. So, in our last minutes, I just want to kind of talk to you a little bit about, if you are in a situation where you have had some of these symptoms that we mentioned today, and you've never had your hormones tested before, this is something to consider. Oftentimes, people are just sort of guessing, but you might have seen from the low estrogen and the high estrogen symptoms, some of them are the same. And so sometimes it's hard to know, do I have high, do I have low? And so we do something here called a hormone balance program, and it measures not only estrogen and those metabolites, so it will tell us whether, remember we talked about the pathways and we wanted the estrogen to go the 2-OH pathway. The program that we use, it's called the Dutch test. It will tell us if the estrogen is going down the pathway that we like. It actually tells us a percentage. I'm going to go to the next slide so I can show you. If you look at the upper left side, there's a pie shape, almost 2/3 of the way down on the bottom on the right side. And so that pie shape is showing you how much of the estrogen is in the form of 2-OH, which the green represents the 2-OH. And then the 4-OH is the red, and then the 16-OH is the blue. So it tests for all of those estrogen and the metabolites. It also will tell you if you are methylating properly, which is part of that phase 2 of liver detoxification. It also tells you progesterone and androgens and their metabolites. It also goes through cortisol, which is a whole nother thing we didn't talk about. That'll be a seminar for the future. That's another one I love to talk about because cortisol affects us all day long. If we are, overproducers or underproducers of cortisol, we know it. We know it in how we are feeling day to day. And then there's organic acids, including it can test for some nutritional deficiencies, and it tests for melatonin, oxidative stress. There's a marker of gut dysbiosis and neuroinflammation. So this is the whole 5-page report that you get there. And you both get this schematic where you're kind of seeing how it looks on the pathways, and then you're also getting the line-by-line report, and also the cortisol, where it shows whether you are in the proper panel or if you are too high or you are too low. So aside from the Dutch testing, we offer private consultations for basically whatever nutritional concerns you may have. Another thing we are doing is comprehensive nutrient analysis. And so one of the things we talked about tonight was that you want to make sure that you have adequate nutrients. Well, how do you know that? One way would be for you to provide a couple of days of your food diaries to me. I will input it in the system, have you come into the office, and I can show you how many calories, how your macronutrients are, what your fiber is, and 22 different vitamins and minerals. And so we've been using this a lot with our osteoporosis patients because we want to look at, people come in and they say, oh, I need to take calcium. Well, calcium, yes, but there's a lot more than just calcium that we need to worry about with osteoporosis. We need to look at our vitamin D and our magnesium and our vitamin K. So that's a analysis that we can do. And then we have a whole GI Revive program for people who have gut issues and even all sorts. That's a whole nother webinar. But we there's so much in our guts that affect our health, and some of it is gut related, and some of it doesn't seem to be gut related. The hormone balance program, as I mentioned, we have cooking classes. As I mentioned, we're going to be doing the cooking with cucurbitas coming up. I believe it's in October. And then we also offer personal training and we have all sorts of recipes and webinars on our webpage. So if you are not dialed into the St. Jude Wellness webpage, please do that. And last, book your first dietitian consultation. And so I am just going to look through your questions and see what I can get answered for you. So first question was, what is NAC? NAC is N-acetylcysteine, and that is something that's derived from an amino acid called cysteine. That is something that we use for estrogen dominance. And as we mentioned, there's several foods that you can get. Some people take it as a supplement. Again, I'm always trying to get it food first. Omega-6 fats. Omega-6 fats are going to be your seed oils. So safflower oil, sunflower oil, canola oil. The omega-3 fats are going to be things like olive oil and avocado oil. So your preference is going to be towards the omega-3s, staying away from the safflower, sunflower, canola oils. There's a few more there, but what about estrogen as a supplement? I cannot comment on that, but if you want to send me, whoever answered that question, asked that question, if you want to send me an email, I can take a look at it a little closer, and then I can maybe give you an answer for that one. And you're welcome. And how much is the program? So, okay, I think you're asking about the hormone balance program. So we have two different programs. We have the basic, which is $350, and then that includes the test, which so it's a dried urine test, and you would I have the kits here in my office. Or we can also, so if you come here often, we can prepare it for you. You can pick it up here. You do it in your home, and then you send it off to the lab, and then I will get the results, and then we will call you, have you come in and schedule a 50-minute consultation to go through your results, and then also what we recommend to do about your results. And then there's also I think it's called Plus. I think it's called Hormone Balance Plus. And that is for people who have specific issues in the mornings. If you're somebody who you cannot get out of bed in the morning, or you are super wired in the morning, and mornings are especially problematic for you, for those people, we recommend the Hormone Balance Plus, I believe is what it's called, and that one is $450. So that one, in addition to everything on the basic, it does something called the cortisol awakening response. And so there's some extra measures of cortisol, and those are done through saliva. And so that is that question. Would the Dutch test work after hysterectomy? Well, absolutely. There's a whole host of things that you are going to get if you that you're going to get from the Dutch test, and so I think we want to know what is our estrogen, what is our all of those hormones. We want to know it, what they are so that we know what we can do to combat any particular issues that we have. So absolutely. um, what is the preferred pathway called? It's the 2OH pathway. um, and so in terms of supplements, that's a really individual thing. And I can tell you some supplements that are out there. If I were to meet with you and to go through, your whole history with you, and also, find that we need to go beyond food sources, there are some supplements that we use to really help things go down the 2OH pathway. Some of those include the DIM and the calcium D-glucarate. I'm sorry, I3C. The DIM and I3C are two supplements that, but again, you can get those from cruciferous vegetables. And so always recommend food first. If food is not enough, then we can look to supplement. One of the concerns that I have from seeing my clients is that there is just an increase in the number of supplements that people are taking, and there's possible reactions or interactions, I should say, with medications. And there's also our stomach juices. And so, like for probiotics, as an example, we don't really know how much probiotics actually get through to our guts. And so making sure it's okay to take a probiotic as a supplement, but making sure that we're also getting it in food is important. Okay, so I'm getting that the three main ingredients in estrogen: black cohosh, soy isoflavones, and Rapontic rhubarb extract. So the main concerns that I have about some of those would be for somebody who is either a breast cancer survivor or is at risk for breast cancer. In those cases, I do not recommend those. And again, I would prefer getting the soy from Whole Foods if possible, and then doing a Dutch test and seeing how everything looks with you getting it from food. And if you can't get it from food and you still have issues, then looking at supplements. Okay. Well, we are at the end. And so thank you all so much for being here. I hope you found this informative, and reach out to us if there's anything that we can do to help support your health and especially your hormone balance.